So welcome, our brilliant colleague Gareth. We so appreciate your leadership and tenacity and solidarity. And as always at Setsi, we begin all things by giving thanks to our creator, by giving thanks to the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We give thanks to all our ancestors, all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We give thanks to all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So Gareth, can you please share a little bit about your remarkable work with our listeners and our viewers?
Thank you so much, Victor, and it's such a pleasure to be here. That was a wonderful introduction. My name is Gareth Gransaull, and I'm the co-executive director of an advocacy organization called Regeneration, which is a Canadian youth-led nonprofit that is focused on empowering the next generation of leaders to rethink how the economy can better serve human and ecological well-being. We have three main pillars, which include our Rework Your Future campaign that's focused on helping students find careers in the clean economy, Reimagine Your School, which is about helping students reform the curriculum at their universities to include sustainability and social impact components, and then Rethink Your Society, which includes our various thought leadership, including our reports and Substack newsletter, as well as policy developments that we participate in. We originally started as the Canadian Business Youth Council for Sustainable Development, which is an incredibly long name that nobody could ever remember. And we decided that we would rebrand it to Regeneration to be more inclusive of all youth and not just business youth, and also send a signal that the future of sustainability is regenerative and that it will be our generation as young people to help realize that future. Now, our flagship campaign at the moment, which I mentioned is Rework Your Future, is a campaign to accelerate the just transition to a clean economy in Canada by helping young people get informed, get involved, and get a job in key sectors of the clean economy, which include sustainable food, green infrastructure, ecosystem restoration, clean energy, sustainable mobility, circular economy, and impact investing. And if you go to our new website, you can see all the resources that we've developed to that effect, including a documentary mini episode on each one of those sectors, which we'll be releasing every month for the next 7 months, as well as a series of sector guides and a centralized job board. We also aim to help young people choose employers based on their values and also become employee advocates within their companies to help transform them from the inside. So we also have 4 overarching demands that we make of all employers, which include raise support for clean energy and phase out fossil fuels, reduce emissions in line with global climate goals, respect Indigenous rights and sovereignty, and restore nature and protect biodiversity. And so this is a standard that we hold all companies to, and we release toolkits that help people understand how their organizations can have an impact on those 4 categories. And there's probably a lot of other things that I'm forgetting, but that's the main gist of things right now.
Wow, what a remarkable journey. Very impressive in terms of the
Thank you.
leadership that it takes to be able to pull off such impactful work that's sustainable and also to build the capacity of young people. So once again, I just really applaud your leadership. Well done, well done. So my next question is,
Thank
what's
you.
inspiring you right now? What has you curious or what's keeping you up at night?
Yeah, lots of things keeping me up at night, definitely. And I tend to be somebody that, I have lots of, eco anxiety and fears about the future, as probably anyone working in this space does. So it's important to stay focused on the positive. And I guess what I would say about our work is that what I'm excited about is that it helps create a positive vision of the future and of what is possible. And that's why we're putting a lot of resources into our documentary production and storytelling, and also our calls to action, which are amplified across the country, which are really focused on helping young people see that they can actually have an impact with their careers, and that a lot of the time that these careers are more meaningful and also a better opportunity for professional development than some conventional pathways. One of the biggest problems in our society is that there are far too many young people, particularly young people that go to business school, that end up in careers that are in some ways exacerbating social problems. And what I mean by that is a lot of them are meta industries like management consulting or investment banking that are necessary, but that ultimately, in a lot of ways, work to either sometimes extend and reinforce the fossil fuel economy, and also widen inequality by, helping companies consolidate or helping wealth managers sort of, hoard wealth in all kinds of ways that these sectors can be problematic. And what's unfortunate to me is that there's a lot of young people that go into careers in like financial engineering or hedge funds or private equity, where they're basically their job is essentially to maximize inequality in our society. And I remember being at business school and seeing that around me, that these were the careers that were considered prestigious and interesting. And so what we're really trying to do is something countercultural, which is try to create positive peer pressure towards organizations that are building a more sustainable world, but also creating jobs in the real economy and having an impact in terms of helping build wealth for society as a whole, and not just people that are already really wealthy. And that's where we see it as an important part of our or mission as an organization, to sort of spotlight those kinds of opportunities and create redirect top talent towards those opportunities, and put pressure on the talent pipeline of companies that we believe are enabling problematic things. So that's one of the things that really gets me out of bed in the morning, and also just creating new narratives to inspire people, and not just throwing facts at people, but really showing them examples of leadership and stories that they can connect with and relate to ultimately. So in that way, it's great to sort of meet fascinating people doing awesome work all over the country, to spotlight leading organizations through the work that we do, to also help incubate and create this ecosystem.
Incredible, incredible. Thank you. So my next question, what challenges and barriers are you and your colleagues facing? And what are some of the approaches you're taking to overcome some of these challenges and barriers?
For sure. There's a lot. I think at a systemic level, one of the barriers is that we do a lot of work trying to transform the energy system and the financial sector. And those are two extremely complex, very important, and very technically challenging problems, because basically the energy sector is dominated by fossil fuels, and the financial system in Canada is also heavily intertwined with the fossil fuel economy. And so as a result of that, we have this problem, which is that Canada is essentially locked into this very high carbon infrastructure system, where all of the government subsidies and policies and initiatives are all tilted towards the status quo. And so there are systemic barriers against creating transformative change in the energy sector. I mean, fossil fuels receive 14.5 times more subsidies than renewable energy. And now all of the energy is going into solutions that are being pushed by the fossil fuel industry, such as carbon capture and storage, which is basically a way to lock in existing infrastructure without having to recognize the scientific need to actually phase out fossil fuels and invest in alternatives. And so a lot of our work is being obstructed by oil and gas lobbying, which is something that happens behind the scenes and is hard to track, but is extremely pervasive at all levels of government. And there's also influence campaigns by industry to use astroturf groups to basically make it look like there's public opposition to all of these policies, when in fact a lot of these groups are actually being funded by industry. And you see that with far-right initiatives like the Freedom Convoy, which occupied Ottawa and Toronto for a long time, which was actually an idea that was originally created by Canada Action, which is an astroturf group that is funded largely by fossil fuel interests. And so part of the problem now is that we have a conservative party that is basically trying to, is rising in the polls because they're tapping into a lot of mass anger and resentment about a lot of things, about inflation, unaffordability, housing, etc. But by choosing the carbon tax and climate change as the scapegoat for that, they're basically trying to turn this Axe the Tax campaign into a general attack on climate action across Canada as a whole. And this is unfortunately turning into a fairly successful electoral strategy. But the problem is that they're basically making it difficult to do this work, and they're also basically not identifying the root cause of a lot of the problems that they're opposed to, such as unaffordability and the housing crisis, all of which really come back to the basically widening inequality and increasing corporate power in our society. And so one of the things that we want to do as Regeneration is do a lot more sort of grassroots movement building and building an alternative vision of the future that can still sort of help address the anger that people feel about the way that the system is not working for them, but by directing it to the actual root causes of the problems, but also helping create a positive vision of the future where we reinvest in democracy and we reduce inequality and we tackle poverty and we build allegiances with other social and economic justice issues, particularly by framing climate solutions as problems to all kinds of issues that we face in society. And so that's where we see our narrative work being very important in that regard. And I'll also mention that I'm working at the moment on a documentary, which is it's a feature-length documentary that's an expose of the political power and the political influence of the fossil fuel sector over the last 50 years in Canada. And we have participation from major experts and former politicians, journalists, professors, and other voices. And the purpose of this is to create a political education tool to help people understand the ways that this industry works behind the scenes to capture our government and our society and our public imagination, and then also frame that problem so that we can actually start the work of building alternatives.
Incredible work, and a perfect segue to my next question. Do you have a set of key priorities right now you'd like to amplify to our community of practice?
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of different ones. I think I touched on a lot of them already, but a key one is redirecting the recruitment pipeline. So helping youth. With our new website, we wanted to make a platform that was as accessible as possible for people to go and basically use these guides that we've created to different sectors to inform themselves about what's happening with lots of different media. So we've curated a list of videos, podcasts, documentaries that people can use to consume information in the manner that they prefer, to learn more about sectors and then find a way to get involved with our job board. And so the purpose of that is really to make it as easy as possible for anybody to envision what an alternative career might look like. So if you have young people in your network that are looking to get involved in climate action or in some kind of social change work, I would recommend that they check out our website. Another key priority, of course, is shining a light on the enabling ecosystem behind the fossil fuel system, which includes not just fossil fuel companies, but also an entire suite of banks and consulting firms and insurance companies and engineering services companies and public relations firms and government relations firms that basically very secretively do the work of obstructing climate action on a day-to-day basis. And so what we also want to do is, with our campaign, really put a light on companies like that, particularly major consulting firms that a lot of young people unfortunately see as being very prestigious companies, to recognize the role that they play in perpetuating some of these problems, and remove the social license that they have by putting pressure on some of those practices. We are also really trying to grow our audience, and so it would be great if people can go check out the content that we put out on Instagram and our LinkedIn, and also our YouTube channel, which is where we put out all of the documentaries that we're developing. And also, it could be interesting to check out our Substack newsletter, which is called Down to Earth, which is available on our website. And it focuses on stories and articles and thought-provoking essays that are really all about the intersection of money, power, and the environment, and trying to tell stories, walk the line between being too techno-optimistic and also too nihilistic and focused on doomsday narratives. We really wanted to create stories that are in between, which show that the world has not always been the way that it is, and that it can be designed differently if we empower ourselves to imagine alternatives.
Incredible. So what is your ultimate goal, and what does success look like and feel like to you and your colleagues?
Absolutely. Lots of things, and it might be hard to describe all in one go. But I would say, ideally, we have a world where everybody who wants one can have a good, well-paying, unionized green job that helps them may earn a living while also working towards a better future. And we saw a small positive development in that effect just last week when the government announced the consultation to create a youth climate corps program, which Regeneration aims to be heavily involved with, hopefully, in terms of the development of what that policy will look like, to sort of create opportunities for young people to get involved in local climate action all across the country. We want fewer young people working in careers that where they face, burnout and abusive management practices and all these kinds of things that are associated with some of these more extractive careers. At a more systemic level, there's a lot of, we have a very concrete vision of the future, but one that's fairly ambitious, which involves systems change. And what I mean by that is addressing the root causes of the increase of corporate power in our society, which means overcoming shareholder primacy and the idea that companies only exist to increase money to shareholders. We want to help end monopolies and put money back in the pockets of people and workers. We want to reinvest in communities and in the public sphere, and particularly in public solutions to public problems, and reclaim the culture of democracy and citizenship in this country in a way that gets more people actively involved in politics at the local and national levels. And then a very important mission as well of our organization is to really undermine the roots of settler colonialism, and really normalize and help raise awareness about the importance of Indigenous rights and sovereignty among people that haven't heard of those concepts before, and work towards a form of multinational federalism that's embedded in land back and in Indigenous sovereignty as a way towards a more prosperous shared future. And ultimately, we really have a vision that's sort of based on increasing the role of government in the economy to help deliver jobs and climate action for people and help communities build out energy democracy and create wealth for themselves.
What a incredible vision and incredible amount of work. Research papers, public policy, development, government relations, advocacy, the development of documentaries, youth development work, systems change, climate action. It's truly phenomenal what you and your colleagues are doing. So I'm really inspired and really impressed. And obviously, it's clear the future looks bright. So, calls to
Well,
action
thank you.
for our listeners and our viewers, my friend.
Yes, thank you so much, Victor, for your kind words. Calls to action, I would say, don't lose hope. I think that the future does look bleak in a lot of ways, but it also means that things are ripe for transformative change. And I think that, we shouldn't be complacent about where things are going, but we should also recognize that the world is always in crisis and the world is always changing, and we can be a part of that change. And so please stay tuned for the documentaries that we have. The fossil fuel documentary that I mentioned is coming out in October. And please check out our website to see how you can get involved in the Rework Your Future campaign. Check out our social medias and website, as I mentioned, to sort of stay tuned. And please, try your hardest to keep optimistic in the face of very difficult social challenges, because ultimately the only thing that will change anything is if all of us believe that the world can be made differently if we so choose.
Indeed, reminds me of one of my favorite quotes by Martin Luther King Jr. The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Gareth, you are a phenomenal young leader. You're inspiring. And yeah, I really appreciate all that you're doing for so many. So folks, this is the first time you're seeing or hearing Gareth on our platform. It will not be the last time. We applaud your tenacity, your self-determination, all the things that you're doing. And as always, at Setsi, we close where we began this conversation by giving thanks to our creator, by giving thanks to the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We give thanks to all our ancestors, all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We give thanks to all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. Gareth, it has truly been a pleasure. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much.